Imagine announcing with great fanfare that you're cracking down on illegal migration by seizing migrants' mobile phones, only to be told by the opposition that those powers already existed in legislation, and you just repackaged existing authority as new policy while scrapping the bit that actually required removing people. That's essentially what's just happened to Labour, and Shadow Immigration Minister Matt Vickers has delivered an absolutely brutal takedown that exposes the government's migration strategy as what he calls tinkering around the edges. Speaking to GB News, Vickers didn't just criticize Labour's latest announcement. He systematically dismantled it, mocked it, and proposed what he considers the only actual solution: physically removing people who arrive illegally. This isn't just another political spat. This is fundamental disagreement about whether Britain can or should control its borders, whether human rights conventions prevent effective action, and whether any government is willing to take the genuinely tough decisions required to stop the boats. Let's unpack this absolutely explosive exchange. Quick favor: if you're loving what we're doing here at British Mirror, hit that subscribe button and smash the bell icon. Over 94% of you haven't subscribed yet. It's completely free, takes about 2 seconds, and honestly means a world to us. Cheers if you've already done it. Right, back to the show. Matt Vickers has launched a brutal takedown of Labour's latest move to tackle Britain's migrant crisis, accusing the government of tinkering around the edges. Tinkering around the edges. That's not suggesting Labour's approach is slightly inadequate. That's saying they are fundamentally unserious, doing cosmetic changes that create headlines but achieve nothing substantive. Speaking to GB News, the Shadow Immigration Minister declared there are already powers in place to remove mobile devices from illegal migrants. Already powers in place. So Labour's big announcement isn't actually new. It's repackaging existing authority and presenting it as bold action. That's not governing. That's political theatre designed to look tough without actually being tough. In their latest bid to crack down on illegal migration, Labour has announced that border force, police, and immigration officials can seize migrants' mobile phones and SIM cards without making an arrest. Seize mobile phones without arrest. That sounds quite dramatic, quite assertive, the kind of measure that suggests government is getting serious. Mobile phones are valuable for investigations. They contain contact information for smugglers, evidence of routes taken, connections to criminal networks. Seizing them makes operational sense. But here's the critical question. If this power already existed, why is Labour announcing it as new policy? The answer, presumably, is that they need to be seen doing something about migration, and announcing existing powers sounds better than admitting they've got no new ideas. However, Mr. Vickers told the People's Channel, when it comes to those mobile phones and removing them from illegal migrants, the reality is that there was already powers and legislation to do this. I think the Migration Act allowed us to take electronic devices, to search them, to seize them, and to do all those things. There it is. Confirmation that these powers aren't new. They existed under previous legislation. Immigration officials could already seize phones. So Labour's announcement is pure smoke and mirrors. It's taking credit for powers the Conservatives already implemented whilst pretending this represents new tough action. That's not just misleading. It's actively dishonest communication designed to deceive the public about what's actually changing. He added, and this is where the criticism becomes devastating, but the other part of that legislation that the Labour government repealed required the Home Secretary to remove people who came here illegally. This is all tinkering around the edges. Wait, let's pause that carefully. Labour kept the bit about seizing phones, but repealed the bit requiring removal of illegal migrants. So they kept the cosmetic power that sounds tough but doesn't actually solve anything, while scrapping the substantive requirement that people arriving illegally must be removed. That's not just tinkering. That's actively undermining effective border control whilst pretending to strengthen it. It's keeping the theatre whilst abandoning the substance. The only way to solve this illegal migration crisis is to remove people who come here illegally. That's Vickers' core argument, and it's brutally simple. If people know that arriving illegally means being removed, they stop coming. If they know arrival means permanent residence regardless of legal status, they keep coming. Deterrence requires consequences. Remove that consequence and deterrence collapses. It's not complicated. It's basic human behavior. People respond to incentives. If the incentive structure rewards illegal migration with permanent UK residents, illegal migration continues. Change the incentive structure and behavior changes. Criticizing the move further, the Tory minister quipped with absolutely delicious sarcasm. The migrants aren't sat in Calais going, "Oh my God, if I get over there, they might take one of my 10 phones off me." One of my 10 phones. That's savage. That's painting a picture of migrants so unconcerned about phone seizure that they are carrying multiple devices specifically anticipating some might be confiscated. It's mockery that exposes how unserious phone seizure is as deterrent. Nobody is reconsidering a dangerous channel crossing because officials might take their phone. The calculus is entirely about whether they'll be allowed to stay, not whether they'll lose a replaceable electronic device. They aren't up there trembling about this one-out scheme that sees 99.5% of the people who've arrived whilst it's been in place stay. 99.5% stay. If that statistic is accurate, it's absolutely damning. It means Labour's much-touted one-in, one-out policy, where for every person removed another can't arrive, is functionally meaningless because almost nobody is actually being removed. It's policy as performance art. It exists to generate headlines about tough action whilst achieving virtually nothing in practice. The only way to do this is to remove them. Calling on ministers to implement a common-sense approach to illegal migration, Mr. Vickers explained with crystalline clarity, people who break into this country, who come in illegally without permission, without a passport, who have no right to be here should be removed. That's how you solve this. Break into this country. That's deliberately provocative language designed to frame illegal migration as violation, as trespass, as criminal act. And legally, arriving without permission is illegal. Whether it's morally equivalent to burglary is debatable, but Vickers is making the argument that illegal entry should have consequences regardless of circumstances. That if you break immigration law, you should be removed. It's strict, uncompromising, and is claiming it's common sense that everybody understands. British politics is fractured into 5 roughly equal chunks, and the governing party is 4th or 5th depending on how you slice it. A staggering 68% of those surveyed by YouGov between December 27th and 29th said they disapproved of Sir Keir's government. 68%. More than 2/3 of the country actively disapproves. Just 12% said they approved. 12%. That's not just unpopular. That's historically, catastrophically, career-endingly unpopular. Another poll in November showed half of Labour voters want Sir Keir to quit. Half of his own voters. Not opponents, not swing voters, but people who actually voted Labour in July 2024 now think he should resign. When your own supporters have turned against you, you've got a problem that can't be fixed with better messaging or policy tweaks. You've got a fundamental crisis of confidence. Sir Keir's future at number 10 is likely to be decided on May 7th when elections will be held for the Welsh Senedd, Scottish Parliament, and local authorities in England. May 7th. That's the real deadline. Not 2027, not the next general election, but May 7th, 2026. If Labour gets hammered in those elections, and all evidence suggests they will, the pressure on Sir Keir will become unbearable. Backbench MPs facing decimation in their constituencies will start demanding change. Party donors will panic. The media will declare his premiership finished. He might survive, but he'll be mortally wounded, a zombie prime minister limping towards inevitable defeat. Labour currently leads the Senedd, but is expected to get a drubbing at the polls in what would mark an historic defeat for Welsh Labour, which has been in power since devolution began in 1999. Since devolution began, Labour has controlled Wales for a quarter century. If they lose that stronghold, it's not just politically embarrassing, it's symbolically devastating. It would signal that even in Labour's traditional heartlands, even in areas that have voted Labour for generations, the party is being rejected. That's not a temporary blip. That's a fundamental realignment. While Sir Keir and his cronies are emphasizing stability and talk of efforts to ease the cost of living, others are waiting in the wings to take the helm. Waiting in the wings. That's diplomatic language for sharpening their knives. Health Secretary Wes Streeting, Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood, and Mayor of Greater Manchester Andy Burnham have all been reported as harboring leadership ambitions. Harboring leadership ambitions. That's a delicate way of saying they're positioning themselves to replace Sir Keir when, not if, he falls. These aren't idle rumors. These are serious politicians with significant support bases calculating when to make their move. where streeting is particularly interesting because he's been remarkably visible and outspoken for a health secretary. He has taken on the NHS, the unions, and vested interests with a boldness that contrasts sharply with Sir Keir's caution. Whether you agree with his positions or not, he is demonstrating political courage and clarity that makes him an obvious alternative if Labour decides they need a change. Shabana Mahmood as Home Secretary is handling some of the most contentious issues around immigration and law and order, giving her visibility and authority. Andy Burnham, meanwhile, has cultivated an image as a successful regional leader who actually delivers for his constituents, offering a contrast to Westminster dysfunction. The fact these names are being openly discussed as potential replacements, while Sir Keir insists he'll still be Prime Minister next year, tells you everything about how weak his position actually is. Strong leaders don't face constant speculation about their successors. Secure Prime Ministers don't have to repeatedly insist they'll still be in post 12 months hence. The very fact that Keir is making these statements reveals how precarious his situation has become. He is not projecting strength. He is desperately trying to stave off a leadership challenge he knows is coming. What makes Sir Keir's position particularly tragic is that he won such a massive majority, 411 seats. A parliamentary landslide, the kind of majority most politicians dream about, the kind of majority that should give you freedom to implement your vision, to take bold action, to transform the country. Instead, Sir Keir has squandered that majority through timidity, poor communication, and policies that alienate both his progressive base and the working-class voters Labour needs to retain. He has managed the extraordinary feat of uniting both wings of his coalition in disappointment and frustration. The comparison to the conservative chaos of 2022 and 2023 is instructive, but not in the way Sir Keir thinks. Yes, the constant leadership changes were damaging. Yes, the instability hurt the country. But at least the Conservatives recognized when leaders had failed and removed them. Liz Truss lasted 4 to 9 days because her policies crashed the economy and her party removed her. That's accountability. What Sir Keir is arguing for is that Labour should stick with him regardless of performance, regardless of polling, regardless of electoral consequences, because changing leaders would be chaotic. That's not stability. That's stubbornness. That's prioritizing his own position over the party's electoral prospects.